What up, guys? So I'm here in my kitchen filming some chess videos, and Magnus Carlsen, he just busted out the Caro-Kann defense as black versus world number, I believe, 2 or 3, Fabiano Caruana. It's hard to keep track these days, but Magnus busting out the Caro-Kann defense versus Fabiano. Gotham Chess must be having, I can't say it on YouTube, but a really good time right now. Let's just leave it at that, because he's a big fan of the opening. And you know what? In the spirit of Magnus, let's flip the board and watch him play the Caro-Kann, an absolute Caro-Kann masterclass from his perspective. All right, in the game, Fabiano, he plays the most aggressive and strongest move here for white. That is the move e5. In my opinion, this is really the only move that lets white fight for a significant edge out of the opening. Almost everything else, whether it's knight c3, knight d2, f3, anything else, it really doesn't give white that much, in my personal opinion. I think e5 is really the only way for white to actually fight for something here. Now, Magnus as black. The two main moves here are c5 and bishop f5. Magnus goes for perhaps the main line here, the more solid option, bishop f5. Now, which option will Fabiano go for in the game? The main line is called the short variation. It's where you go knight f3, bishop e2, short castles, and I believe it may have been named after the Grandmaster Nigel Short, a very, very strong GM in his day, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but anyway, it's the short variation. It's very good, very solid, but instead, Fabiano, mixing things up, he goes knight b d2. Okay, what is the idea behind this move? It's simple. You want to go knight to b3, and from there, the knight clamps down on the c5 square, and from there, white may try to finish kingside development. So kind of a interesting wrinkle here. All right, Magnus, he's not phased. e6. Then knight b3, then knight d7, black getting the famous Caro-Kann pawn triangle. Again, Gotham Chess would be very, very proud of the GOAT here. Now, Fabiano, knight f3, then a6, and then bishop e2. So Fabiano here going for the short variation, intending short castles. Maybe from there, bishop d2, rook c1, maybe c4, maybe a4, a5, and so on. These are kind of the typical ideas of this line from white's standpoint. And this opening, this line in general, is just absurdly complicated. It's very hard to play as white. It's actually a lot easier to play as black, in my opinion. As black, you're kind of just developing, attacking on the queen side and so on. But white has to play a lot of really, really just sophisticated ideas to get a good edge here. All right, black, c5, standard move. White goes c3, defending d4. So far, so good. Now black, h6, a good multi-purpose move, very typical in this line for black. And it does two things here. First of all, it's giving the light squared bishop the square h7 to retreat to if it wants to go back there later in the game. Beyond that, black is also setting up the idea of g5 here. g5 would be quite strong for black. It's a typical idea. Black may go, for example, knight to e7, bishop g7, queen c7. He might flirt with castling long in some lines. It's all very complicated. There are a lot of ideas, but overall, bishop h7 and g5 are the ideas behind this move. Now, from here, white castles, and Magnus here, he makes an extremely, extremely committal move here in this position. He plays the move c4, attacking the knight. Okay. The reason this move is so committal, it releases all of the tension in the center. Right here, we have these pawns on d4 and c5. They're attacking each other. There's tension. Lots of trades could happen. White could trade, black could trade, and so on. But when you go c4, you completely abandon the idea of taking on d4, and therefore the c file is going to be closed for a very long time. And from here, black's plan is simple. As soon as the knight moves, for example, knight b d2 played in the game, from here, black's long-term plan is pretty straightforward. b5, maybe a5, then b4, then potentially taking on c3, piling up on the b file like this, and so on. You're kind of just trying to expose c3 as a future weakness and then gang up on the open a file, bring out the queen, and so on. You're attacking on the queen side, and the drawback of this is white is going to have a free hand to attack on the king side with moves like potentially, I don't know, knight to h4 in some lines, knight e1, then f4, g4 in some lines. That's kind of the main idea for white, knight e1, and then push these pawns like this. And it's all very complicated. So Magnus here going for a real fighting game as black. All right, b5 is the move, knight e1. Fabiano, he knows what he's doing, intending the f4, g4 plan for white. That is the way to go here for white. Now black, knight d7. And then here Fabiano plays a move that really surprised me. f4, g4 is really the main idea. You have to start the attack. Again, black has no real way to blow open the center. If the pawn was still on, say, c5, then this would be too ambitious. But, of course, with the center this closed like this, there's simply no drawback to going f4, g4 right away. But instead, white goes knight c2. Okay. The idea behind this move, I believe, is you want to go knight e3, at which point the knight is actually very well placed, and from then you go f4, g4. However, Magnus, he just drops back, he's not phased, and now we have f4, and now Magnus, he tries to throw a little bit of a wrench in white's plans. He plays the move h5. Okay, this move is... I mean, it looks ludicrous to me. I'm not sure how to say it. I'm rated about 2,000 online on chess.com and Rapid and Blitz. But to me, this is like, you're giving up the pawn for nothing, it seems like. Or are you? Here's the idea. If white takes the pawn, then you insert the intermediate move, bishop takes c2. And if the queen takes, you take the bishop and you win material. However, white doesn't have to capture immediately. Instead, in the game, g3 was chosen, consolidating on the king side, a solid choice. However, this move is a little bit weak also. I'm giving it the dubious mark here. Instead, the right way forward for white is rook to f3, intending rook h3, pressuring h5 all the same. Instead, g3 chosen in the game, and obviously now with g3, the rook lift, rook f3 to h3, threatening h5, and so on, isn't going to be possible. That is just not going to work out here for white. All right, from here, black, bishop takes c2 is the move. Extremely strong move from black's standpoint. The queen takes back, and then g6. So black getting the infamous every pawn on light squares formation. I mean, just look at this right here. Gotham Chess would be having a field day with this game if he analyzed it. I'm not sure, but if he did, oh boy, he loves these light square strategies where you bring out the bishop, then put every pawn on light squares. Usually not this extreme, but if he's watching this game, I'm sure he's having a field day. Anyways, here, white, knight to f3 is the move. Then knight f5 for black. And black has a really good clamp on the king side here. This pawn controls g4. If white tries to go h3, then g4, well, that hangs the g3 pawn. I mean, yes, white can go king g2 and so on, but overall, black here has, you know, a decent amount of space on the king side. The rook on h8 is quite well placed. If the h-file ever gets opened up, the rook will be eyeing the open h-file. So it's kind of hard for white to attack here. All right, Fabiano, bishop d2 is the move. Then bishop e7, and then king g2, and then knight b6. So Magnus here trying to slowly but surely unwind his pieces. Sooner or later, the idea is going to be a5, then b4, threatening on c3, opening up the b file, and so on. He can't just wait around forever on the king side. Sooner or later, he does have to counterattack. Now, from here, white goes h3. So he brought the king up to g2, defending g3, then goes h3, intending g4. So solid idea. Magnus in response, h4. Now we have g4 and then knight to g3. The knight jumps in. It's sort of trapped on g3. Maybe it can go to e4 later. It also pressures the rook and the bishop. So obviously the rook has to move here. We have rook f to e1. And here Magnus has the option of winning the bishop, that being actually a so-called good bishop, as most of white's pawns here are on dark squares, like all these squares. However, he knows that he can do this anytime he wants. And the bishop, I mean, it can't go to d3. If it goes back here, it gets traded. If it goes back here, it's pretty poorly placed. So Magnus here is not in a rush to win the bishop. Instead, he likes his knight. All right, black here, a5. Here we go. Bishop d1 and then b4. Magnus finally getting this key idea here. The big b4 advance. This is what we've been waiting for the entire game in this Caro-Kann so far. All right, Fabiano, queen c1, drops back. The queen and the bishop lining up on this diagonal, applying a little bit of pressure here. So far, so good. Now, queen d7 for Magnus. Now, rook to e3. The rook lift on the third rank. What's the idea behind this? Well, I'm not really smart enough to say. It's a move. All right, here we go. Rook b8. Eyeing the b file. Here we go. Bishop to e1. Okay, that's the idea of rook to e3. Okay, the weird dance with the bishop and the rook here. Okay, trying to pretend like I know what I'm talking about here. All right, knight e4. The knight drops back. It's out of the way of the attack of the bishop. I certainly know that move. All right, bishop c2, increasing the pressure on the knight on e4, and then knight to a4, jumping in. Now, one of the ideas is, well, there's two ideas. First of all, black doubling up pressure on that pawn on c3. Both of these knights would be attacking after the trade. If black takes and white takes back, we'll say the bishop, black takes again, opening up the c file. And beyond that, the knight on the a5 square also eyes the b2 square, and there may be certain lines where you perhaps go rook b2 or knight b2 or so on after the b file is opened up. Now, Fabiano, rook b1, a good prophylactic move, good preemptive idea. The point being, sooner or later, the b file is going to be opened up, and you do want your rook on the b file ready for it. Now, here, black takes on c3. B takes c3, b takes c3, and then short castles. The king does slide over to safety on the king side right here like this. Now, white, queen d1. The queen slides over, but this is a missed opportunity. Obviously here, Fabiano, he has the option of just trading twice on e4 like this. You just trade twice, you win the pawn, and everything is defended. So you're just better. But Fabiano, in this game, in this rapid game, he ignores the idea. Instead, queen d1. The queen slides over. And now, Magnus, he's got this giant gaping hole on b2. Not YouTube friendly. Giant gaping hole on b2. The knight or the rook could both jump into the giant gaping hole. And which one will it be? Well, the right move is knight b2. Jumping in with the knight, pressuring the queen, maybe intending knight to d3 ideas. Instead, in the game, rook to b2 was chosen, and this is significantly weaker. Here, white trades on b2. We have rook takes, and then knight takes, and then queen to e2, the queen getting off that back rank there. But turns out queen e2, not the most precise move. Instead, queen b1 sliding over, and again, trying to gain control of the b file. That was the right way forward. Instead here, and by the way, if white goes, say, queen b1 and black goes, say, rook to b8, the idea is from here, you can just trade on e4 and once again win that pawn, and you're doing outstanding. Instead of all that here, queen to e2 chosen in the game, and then black does go rook b8. Magnus here, he knows the rook belongs on the open b file. Now here, Fabiano, he spots the free pawn on h4. He has two attackers versus the one defender. If my math is correct, two is more than one, and white wins the pawn on the h4 square. But Magnus, he's not slowing down. Knight to d3, jumping in, pressuring the weak bishop on c1. These two knights are just a menace in the position. The knight also threatening this pawn with the royal fork on the king and the queen. White, he cannot tolerate that. He trades on d3. Black takes back, c takes d3, and then queen takes d3. Unfortunately, this knight cannot go one step sideways to f4. If it could, that would be a fork, but for now, white is safe. Now, rook b2, the rook flies in. Magnus still fighting for the initiative. We have rook e2 blocking the attack, and then queen to b7. The queen slides over as well, defending the rook on the b2 square. Now, knight to f3, the knight drops back, a4. Magnus pushing the pawn, maybe intending a3. doing two things. First of all, there's the a3 idea. Second of all, getting out of the way of potentially a future attack by the bishop if white does go c4. So a solid move here. Now, Fabiano, h4, pushing his 4 versus 3 kingside pawn majority, a good idea. Maybe intending h5, maybe intending f5. He's got to make it happen on the king side. Now we have a3 and then h5. Fabiano, the alpha 0 pawn. Here we go. G takes, then G takes. It is now a passed pawn on the king side. Is there anything here that can slow down the advance of this pawn? All right. From here, rook takes e2 is the move, then queen takes e2, and then queen to b2. The queen flies in as well to the b2 square. Now, of course, there is the option of trading queens. Either side could trade, but obviously, if you're rated anything over 172 ELO in online chess, you'll know queen takes is not the right idea. If you do that, you literally lose the game on the spot, because here there's nothing stopping the pawn. If white goes back to, say, d2 trying to defend, you just trade knights and then promote and win the game. So heading back to this position here, obviously queen takes b2, not the right idea. Instead, king to f1 chosen in the game, basically saying, if you want to trade queens, do it on my terms. Take on d2, I'll take back with the king, and I'll be okay. Now, from here, black, queen c1, dropping back, attacking the bishop, pinning it to the king, also attacking f4. Lots of ideas in the air, and also even pressuring c3 still. Knight takes c3, still a possibility. Now, queen g2, check, hits the king. And here Magnus makes actually a pretty significant mistake, and it's not easy to understand why this would be a mistake. He plays the move king to h7. Now, for very complicated reasons, this move is it's debatable. Is it a blunder or a mistake? I'm going to say a mistake. There are some tactical implications here. Instead, king to h8 was the right move. Now, if you like puzzles, try to figure out why king to h7 was not the right idea by Magnus. Even the GOAT makes tactical mistakes. Even at the super GM level, most games are decided by tactical shots and tactical opportunities and misunderstandings. Now here, in the game, white went h6, but that is not the strongest idea, and it's not the way to punish black. The move you want to play, if you want to punish black, is f5, threatening f6. And if black takes, you play the insane idea of e6. And this is all so complicated. Real fast, I do want to show it to you. It's a beautiful line. The line is f5. If black takes, you go e6, deflecting the pawn off f7. From here, if black takes the pawn, then queen g6 hits the king goes back, then queen to e8 hits the bishop and the king. That is the entire idea. You want to deflect these pawns away from these squares, opening up this diagonal and initiating the fork and winning material. So that is the entire idea. Obviously, with the queen, you can't go here right away. The entire idea, deflecting these pawns away from this diagonal and deflecting away from that square. Instead, in the game, h6 was chosen by Fabiano. Now we have king takes h6. Queen to h3 attacks the king g7, queen g2, king to f8, and then queen to h2 sliding over yet again. And material here is still even. However, Fabiano missing the f5 idea earlier in the game. Actually, in this position, f5 again is the right idea, and he misses it again. Instead, queen h2, he slides over, defends f4. That pawn was under attack by the queen here, but now Magnus, he starts to simply take over in this game. King to e8, the king running away, intending king d7, and the king is going to be surprisingly safe there. There's no easy way to attack the black king. Now Fabiano makes a big mistake. Queen g2. What is the problem? You give up the pawn on f4 for no reason. Queen takes f4, winning the pawn and pinning the knight on f3 to the king on the f1 square. The king, it goes to e2. Now queen to c1. The queen flies back, king to f1, and then queen d1. The queen slides over yet again, pressuring that poor knight on f3. Now we have queen g8. Magnus here up a pawn. Bishop f8 blocks the attack. Queen g2, and then knight takes c3, winning pawn number 2 as the bishop is pinned to the king. And from here, the pawn on a2 is also under attack. Now queen to f2, the queen slides over, knight d4, the knight pressures the queen, queen to e3, bishop b4, attacking the pinned piece, king g2, queen to c2 check, hits the king, king to h3, bishop takes e1, queen takes, and then queen takes a2. Magnus here being up 2 pawns, plus the alpha 0 a pawn. That pawn is simply unstoppable. Fabiano makes one more move here, queen to c1, but Magnus, queen to f2, sliding over, threatening checkmate, threatening the knight, threatening a2. There's simply no way to respond to all the threats. Stockfish agrees. It says mate in 13 moves here. Mate in 13. See if you can find 12 moves now. See if you can find the mate in 12 moves. Comment down below if you think you found it. I am not good enough to find it, but maybe you are a stable chess genius and you can figure out these things. So if you can, let me know. Mate in 11, it keeps going down. But anyways, that is all for today. Incredible game from Fabiano Caruana versus Magnus Carlsen from day 2 of the 2025 Super United Croatia Rapid and Blitz Tournament. All right, Chess YouTube, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, comment down below what you thought of the game. Smash that like button. It does help me out a ton. I mean, I'm here in my kitchen filming chess videos in my free time. I'm clearly not well off, so smash that like button. Help me out. Help a brother out. Let's send this video to more people. Let's share the joy of chess videos in my kitchen with the entire world. And as always, I wish you the best of luck in your chess improvement journey in 2025 and beyond. And I'll see you in the next video.